I am strong. If you don't know me, I'm a Valorant coach. I've been in Pro Valorant basically since the beginning of the game in 2020. Up until 2 weeks ago, I was coaching at Team Vitality in the EMEA League. I quit that on last Tuesday, and now it's next Thursday, and I'm really bored. I can't even describe how bored I am. So, with that in mind, figured it might be interesting to do a little bit of content. So here we are. So, obviously, the Valorant calendar being what it is, right now the big event is the only event, really. Masters in Shanghai, whoopee. And I was trying to think, what can I do on that? What can I do on that that would be genuinely interesting? Hasn't been done to death. No top 10 list, no this, no that, no. What I kind of came up with last day or two, just thinking about it, was what if I kind of just took the stuff I'm good at, which is, so I've been coaching for a long time, a strategic coach. Why not just dial deep into that? So what we're going to do today is we're just going to look at one map. We're going to go over every team at this event. I'm going to look at one map, and let's see how this goes. So the map I've chosen for this is Split. It wasn't for any particular reason. It helps that all the European teams play Split. Because that is kind of where a lot of my knowledge pre-existing comes from. But it was an arbitrary choice, didn't get played today, which was quite lucky. But so we're dialing down the Split. Now here on the screen right now should be a chart. And I promise you this is not going to be a particularly, I'm not a huge data guy. This isn't kind of what my focus is. This isn't what I don't think is particularly interesting, but I'm just using this to sort of set the initial sort of tone of it. So this is every team's map record during the regular season playoffs, not kickoff, for this year on Split who have got to Masters. Now the first thing you'll notice is one of the nice things about doing a map by map sort of look at these things is, well, surprise, surprise, these teams, there are teams who haven't played this map. Leviathan basically have it as a permaban, FPX have it as a permaban, T1 have it as a permaban. So start off with, I'm not going to discuss any of those three teams, even though T1 have nominally shown something on it, because there's not really anything to go on unless you go way back with it, and even then maybe it's not possible. These teams can't play Split, these teams aren't like to play Split. So we're left with 9 teams that can play Split, has shown some sort of level of willingness to play Split. You can kind of see, of those 9 teams, I would say 7 probably have it as a relatively, not necessarily high priority, but they're very willing to sort of see that get picked, right? And there are a couple of us that just aren't particularly high priority in it, but I think G2 are actually really good on this map. First spoiler, PRX not good on this map. The numbers obviously here don't really tell you that much. There's an assumption, there's a fixation in this game using statistics for this sort of stuff. I don't think it generally helps you too much, because the problem is the sample sizes, even at 4 or 5 games, are way too small to really make too much hay out of, so whatever. But the things you will pick up immediately is this was played very heavily in EMEA, not so much in NA. Obviously you can see the last time those two teams played it were upper finals. He did not play in grand finals. I believe it was map 5. It was map 5 in Pacific as well, but it has been weirdly a fixture of Genji's map pool, but they haven't been particularly good on it. So 2 and 3, and then EDG just loved this map. They destroyed the RG, and I think it gets banned against them a lot. I might be wrong on that, but in any case, this is kind of where we are with it. And if you look there at the comps you've got, so you can't, this is the thing, you can't hyperfixate on comps in terms of different teams can play different comps very differently. It's a set of tools. It predisposes you to playing in a certain way usually. So for example, I will say PRX and Genji play this fairly similarly in broad strokes. EDG and DRG, not so much. But the nice thing is we have a lot of comp diversity on this map, because I think it's one of those maps where, weirdly, because it's been around since beta, but it doesn't feel particularly solved. It feels like teams are kind of still every team, even if there's relatively good teams in this, are trying to figure out stuff. And I think there's reasons for that. I think just because of how the meta has developed, this iterative process, like how things have basically gone. Because if you remember, Champion 2023, Split was, I think, tied for the most common pick. And it was a very silly map. Because it was just like, it was the most attack-sided map in the entire tournament. People would just execute there and people wouldn't know what to do about it, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of developed over this year and it's kind of iterated, and it's iterated in interesting ways. So this is... We'll go more into this, basically. Ta-da! It's the Matrix. So let me explain what this is. Because I didn't want to... At least not for this... I've watched every single one of these teams, multiple games where possible. I don't think it makes particularly interesting content for me to go through every single team one by one, so I'm not going to do it. Maybe I'll do this at some other point on the stream or something like that, but... What we have here is I went through every team, considered every matchup, and I was like, okay, on each side, as a sort of median amount, this is what I kind of would expect them to get in terms of rounds. So you can see on the team on the left, each time is the defending team. The team on top is the attacking team. And the number there is the number of rounds I would kind of expect that team as a default to get, the defending team to get against the attacking team, right? So for example here, let's say it's Heretics versus PRX, I would kind of expect Heretics to get 6.5 rounds. And why do I say 0.5? Well, the reason for this is basically because pistols. Because while I don't think pistols are random, I think they are slightly disconnected from the things that make you good during pretty much every sort of round, right? It's a very different dynamic. It's very possible for a team to be really good on pistols and really bad in a lot of other areas. We kind of saw this last year. Global had like the highest pistol win rate in the world, and it wasn't even close, and they were really they were struggling for most of the rest of their game. You can be a good team on pistols, even on the same map, and then not be a good team on the rest of the round. So I generally kind of mentally check pistols as okay, well, this could go either way. Now, if you do that, you sort of say, well, what these numbers mean is I'm basically saying, look, for example, with Heretics versus PRX 6.5, I'm saying, I think Heretics on defense versus PRX will get, if they win the pistol, they get 7 rounds. If they lose the pistol, they get 6 rounds. Because obviously it is, you expect to win the next round after the pistol, you kind of expect to lose the bonus. I know that's not entirely true anymore. I know that's not entirely true for elite teams, but this is kind of the model we're using for this. That's why it's 0.5. And if you want to set an overrun line on that, you put that there as well. So yeah, that's why that's set up like that. And I did this without thinking about total rankings, like whatever, but at least we'll get some interesting results in here. And I'm going to go through basically a few points that I think we'll cover without having to spend forever on this. We'll cover like 90% of what I kind of think about these things, what makes them interesting, what makes certain matchups potentially really interesting, all that sort of stuff. So let's go on with that. My first point here I've got is, why is the EMA so low on defense? Because if you look there, I basically think that they're all above 50%, but of the worst teams in the tournament, there ends up being 3 of them at EMEA. Of the 4 worst. Now, why is that? Well, I think there's a few things here. The EMEA meta is still heavily focused on retakes on this map, and on a relatively safe approach to sites where you're not really going to push lobby too hard. You're going to kind of fall back quite quickly. You're going to be in a position you're playing. For example, if you're playing B backside, you're going to try and get off site quite quickly. So these teams have poor lobby control, and also these teams have they fixate on mid, I think, a lot more than they should. And I think I kind of understand the reason for that. It's because of how this Viper meta sort of worked out. This double controller meta, obviously, it's on Split as well. And teams have kind of just gone, Viper put down an all-1 mid, and she's put her wall across. She put a wall across A, as she always does. Oh crap! What do we do here? Like, what do we do? Because they like to fight mid a lot beforehand, and they kind of saw that like, well, oh crap! It doesn't really make sense to. Well, they think that they can't really fight mid on attack, and then on defense they're like, well, we can take all of mid now. We can take all of this control on mid because Viper can be there. We're going to put 3 on there. But we still think they're going to push into the bubble. We're still going to push into that sort of stuff. So they kind of fixate on mid, particularly on defense, a lot more than they probably should. Now, I don't think that was an awful call, particularly when double duels was a meta, right? Because you have raised jet, you can just jump into B heaven, and it's really hard to do anything about it. It's kind of more, I would say it's harder to do play out events, but whatever. I understand it from that perspective. I kind of understand it from the very early iterations of how people playing double controller. But with double controller now a bit more matured, and now with how with both Fade and Yoru being picks you can kind of opt into, it doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't think you get, like, I think it becomes a lot easier to break that mid control. And if you break that mid control, then you can't afford to be passive on lobbies, because you will just get overwhelmed, you get locked out of sight. Yeah, there's no Sage or anything like that. People aren't playing Deadlock or anything like that, so you can theoretically do the retake still, but I think you're putting yourself in a bad position generally when you do that. So, of these three teams, I think on defense, Fnatic are the best. But it's for the reason that Fnatic have always been the best on defense on a lot of maps. Which is, they're really good at progressing back through angles as they defend sites. It's a well-known thing, like it's... obviously Leo and Fnatic, there's basically two things he's kind of well-known for, I think, among the pro community. One is how he progresses back through those angles, and two is the Leo peak, which is just an extremely wide swing. That works if you're willing to sit on angles, you're willing to sit by angles and you play patiently backwards and you make sure that you don't get overwhelmed. And to be fair, it's kind of hard to send too much util backside towards, let's say, B in particular on split. Okay, yeah, you can do fine still. You can do fine without having really anything else. I also kind of think there's going to be a couple of matchups here where the way that they play that is going to go really well into a team if a team basically takes lobby, spends a lot of resources in lobby, and then they sort of come try and do the second and third wave attack against them. So they're attacking like they're trying to get executes off like 105, they're trying to get executes off like 35 seconds, something like that. I think from that, the way Fnatic play just naturally sets them up quite well to play against that. So a couple of matchups here where it's just really favourable. I want to say 100 Thieves is going to be really good. Once they foot, if they play again, which would be really good. But I think to play optimally into how this sort of meta is developing, you need to be able to play with mentality and with agent kits that favour being able to play essentially two hard anchors. You've got hard anchor on A, kind of playing site, not back and elbow, like on site, and someone playing backside on B. So if they try and like do anything with Yoru, he's there, he can get a kill, he can get out, or he can place later plant, he can do all this sort of stuff. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if that's an easy fit for Fnatic. Because of just Leo's really good at this. He can be fall back a little bit too quickly, but he's good at this for the most part. Alpha is kind of a weird player for this sort of stuff. So it's not an easy fit for them to adapt, and it's Fnatic. They don't adapt particularly well anyway. They're not like overly adapted to. They just kind of play the core style really, really well. So making this sort of adjustment is kind of finicky for them. So I don't know what the ceiling is on that defense. Heretics on paper could potentially do it. They haven't been. It feels like Boo has to be one of the anchors, which as IGL was a massive problem, because you're asking him to survive against a bombarding of sites and try and get a kill when he's also trying to figure out how to play the round out afterwards. But he can do it. But on the problem is who does it on the other side, because Benji can do this, but again, he's kind of like worse than Leo in terms of falling off angles too quickly. Rien's plays full rotator, so it's kind of difficult for them. And Foot, I don't think can do it. Unless, I mean, the problem is one of the guys who would have to angle would be Yatuye. And doing that on Viper is super hard. It's possible, I think. Particularly if, it's a little bit difficult to Sky in particular. I think, ironically, your favour playing Viper as an anchor, but I don't know if they can do it. So that's kind of that in sort of, thing is why EMEA is coming out. I mean, look, it's still about 50%. In the aggregate, obviously, but that's because Split is heavily CT-sided, but they're not doing great. So, yeah. Point 2, NA and APAC both seem heavily CT-sided insofar as extremely high marks on CT, extremely low marks on attack. Now, should be stressed here, I think Split in general is pretty CT-sided right now. And I believe if you go back to, for example, Masters Shanghai, I believe that the number I come up with here is 55-45 in favour of defence. Just by accident, not really by planning it that way. And that is what the numbers were at Masters Madrid. So that's cool. But it's interesting because our heart tells us, okay, particularly for APAC, they're still running those double duelist comps. And our heart tells us, right, double duelist should be attack-sided. You can execute, you can do whatever you're going to do, you can potentially try and pick two sides of the map, you can try and pick with two people. Obviously last year as a champ, Split was I think 57% to the attack side, and Double Duelist was a large part of that meta. It would have been even larger if not for Loud playing their Breach comp. But here's the thing, if you're going to fight over lobbies all day, which you kind of should with these comps, that's going to incline the entire game to be more defense-sided. Because on most maps in this game, I think fighting for that first angle generally will favour the defense because you get into position first, you get to set your feet first. You could argue that it's not necessarily that way because players are smart with movement now, but which way you don't just see like, I don't know, a chamber holding the B lobby angle alone on Split anymore. But I still think it's generally true. It should in theory favour defense. And the problem is, I think with that, and with Sky in the state she is now as well, if you're using those comps, it's really, really hard to make anything happen out of mid-control as the attacking team. You just don't have the resources to really keep going once you'll get that mid-control. I don't know if you can really keep going with Sky. And without, let's say, Breach, without Fade's not amazing if it's without Fade, without whatever else you might play. It's kind of hard to force the issues into either Heaven or into Ropes. So as the attacking team, okay, this doesn't favour me, but I'm just going to take those lobby fights because it probably is still my best option because it's hard to play out of mid. And that's why you get this thing where both sides are like, yeah, we're going to get 8 rounds on defence and hopefully, maybe we get 9, hopefully. If we get 7 we lose, who cares? But I think this is going to be interesting because of how it's going to match up against 1-3-1 heavy teams. Particularly I think Foot would be the really interesting one. Not necessarily because I think Foot have all the answers or think these 1-3-1 heavy teams have all the answers. Again, I think there's serious concerns to be had in terms of how they use that space when they get it in mid. But it would at least provide a different way of doing things. Now for NA, I think this more just comes down to I am really impressed with what those teams showed off on CT from where I've watched. And I should be clear here, I've been eating me all year. I haven't really been watching other regions too much. I'm vaguely aware of some stuff I'm in NA, but more so on the tier 2 side. I'm not selling those bots each week. I watched and I was like, damn, these teams are really, really good on these defenses. Even though 100 Thieves is a core map for them, G2 haven't played it that much. Both teams have kind of poor records on it, but I was impressed, genuinely. And I think either the NA teams or Fnatic are going to be on the best overall meta position coming into the tournament. I'm just kind of worried about what if they get hard stops and attacks by teams doing lobby control, because G2 as the less experienced team on that map, they kind of already did that to 100 Thieves attack, and I think 100 Thieves I think G2 have the better understanding of how to attack with Fade of the two teams, if I'm remembering correctly. I might be chatting there, but the point is, I kind of have concerns over what happens when those attacks run into those Apex and Chinese defenses. Bear in mind also, the Fade comp only came into place for playoffs for G2 too, so it doesn't matter how good the player for G2 is on that. You kind of have to make it work as a team. You have to have the ability to force the option. For 100 Thieves, it's been a longer term thing. They've got plenty of experience, sure. Results have been spotty, and this is the thing. Fade Gecko, that is an ugly combo to try and string together util on. When you have to force the issue, you have to force in because the Fade eye is easily cleared. The dog just the dog clears close. It doesn't clear far onto sites. The eye can kind of clear far onto sites. The flash is really awkward because to get it in a position where it's going to actually clear enough of that site, you have to throw it in a place where it might be unrecoverable. You have to risk it being unrecoverable, and that's really, really bad. And you've only got one flash for the take. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of a little unsure about how their attacks are going to fare. The defenses look sick, but I don't know about the attacks. Point 3, NA might be at the forefront of the meta in general. So I think NA has a meta read here overall. Because look, metas are iterative, there's no right or wrong answer to this. I kind of just think they're the furthest forward with this, and I think it's probably going to work out well for them in terms of the iterations. And what it comes down to essentially is why are teams still playing Sky on this map? And before someone points it out, yes, I know Vitality plays Sky on this map. I don't agree with it. Didn't agree with it at the time. I don't think it's good. Unless you have, there's literally watch all these teams playing Sky. The one team I think have really good sort of stuff with Sky is Gen G, just because Munchkin is insane on the agent and uses a dog really well, which you have to be able to do. But whatever. But I think Fire Fade is really good because of just the ability. The dogs are incredibly powerful. The eye, obviously, it's going to get shot most times. But because the map is so compressed, particularly if people are a little bit off timing with it, you're going to have to clear out sort of areas with it massively well. I think the pull is really, really good for lobby control. Far better than even Sky Dog, particularly on B. So I'm kind of a big believer in Fade on this map. But there's two things I kind of want to see as we get into this tournament. First, Fade might actually scale down in use as lobby contest increases, which is weird. What I mean by this is, if you just have Fade sitting on B lobby and she puts out one dog, you can use that kind of take space, and maybe she sits there, or I don't know, Omen sits there, and great. But her util when there's 2 or 3 people, and there's one guy, as soon as that one guy from the attacking team there, because he gets taken off his angle, yeah, you're good. If there are 2 or 3 guys and they're using util to get into lobby, that might be a lot weaker because then the dog only hits 1. Yeah, totally there, but you can't really follow up on that. I think the pull is really good. Could be really good for set plays, but it's a little awkward to use around that B lobby. A lobby, I think you have to be really good Fade. There's more potential, but you have to be really good on Fade to actually use it properly because of how you have to position the pull, all this sort of stuff, the timings. So she might scale down in terms of her use in lobby contest. Her use as lobby contest increases in general. Now, in mid, particularly on both sides really, but particularly on attack, she's really, really good. Whether she's versus one person versus 3 people. Because of the way, a lot of this, but the thing is, a lot of this is because of the way she's able to use Viper util around mid, because there's a lot of places where just Viper puts the bubble down, tries to play off of that, and you maybe use Sky Flashes off of that, blah, blah, blah. She's really, the point is, the way her eye works and the way her dogs work, she can just help you fully take space in mid. Even if there's 3 people there, she'll take enough space that you can actually do stuff out of it. And as long as they can hold that space for long enough and she keeps one dog back, you can actually get to heaven from that. Which has always been, getting out of that B choke in mid has always been a massive problem in this map. So, I think the problem is that she kind of might lose a lot of that use if teams go, right, we're not going to put the Viper util down there anymore, we're going to move it away. EDG in particular are super reliant on having heavy Viper on side for util and mid. So she'll do really well into them. But then if teams move that away, teams start going towards Harold Anchors on sites, I don't know how well she scales up. So that'll be interesting to see, basically. And the second thing is, I think Yoro just might be the more advanced school. Again, this is coming from, I think it's fine to say, if we played this in Squims Vitality, it was good. But he has better flashes than Sky. He has the ability to hold an open line, particularly because he's able to play for either side. He's able to TP out if he gets trapped on the wrong side. You lose info, but you didn't have info anyway with Sky. Let's be honest. With Sky, you don't have the recharging flashes anymore, so her info is pretty bad. She has 2 flashes and then she's done. And she has a dog, but if you're using a dog for pure info, it's kind of... But if you're using your dog for anything other than execute, it's kind of bad on attack. So with Fade, you have cycle info. It's not the best on this map because you can hide in a lot of positions and still break it, essentially. So you can do without it. And I think in general, you're not getting too much out of your info on Split anyway. So I feel like you can just play Euro and be like, yeah, the util's going to be in my body. No, the info's going to be in my body, rather. So you can do without it. And it seems to get more creative with how they're using Cypher. That also becomes easier. So I think Euro might be the better call here. I'm really interested to see if Fnatic play against either the NA teams on Split, how that will match up. And finally, who's the best team at Split in this tournament? My call is probably Gen G. Which again seems weird because they've not got an outstanding record on it, not that anyone apart from ETG does. I went through EDG's games, by the way. I mean, 2 of them were against the same team, which is DRG. They were doing some interesting stuff, particularly with regards to how they played Viper on attack, with regards to how they duoed Viper and Cypher on defense. There was some interesting stuff there. I don't know how well that holds up if a team is like aware of it and is able to counter it, because it doesn't seem that difficult to counter. And maybe I'm wrong on that. We'll see. But I think the thing with Gen G is seems slightly more robust. They do benefit here in terms of that ranking from some really lopsided matchups, like what I'm rating them against G2, what I'm rating them against PRX, what I'm rating them against DRG, obviously. And that does help them. But I think their split is just solid. It's very well rehearsed. Like I say, Munchkin is the only Sky I've seen, at least in these 9 teams. I can't remember during the regular season, the EMEA. But he's the only one where it's like, yeah, you should still play that on this map. You're good enough on Sky, and you're getting enough value out of Sky with regards to how close you play with the dog, and how well you play with the Raze and the Jet, that it's actually got value. They're benefiting from a good field here for them, I think, as well. So this is the thing. If you're going to try and undo Gen G, what do? I think ultimately you opt out for lobby contest. If you can play out of mid, great. So maybe foot, who knows? Even though I have them, I don't think I have that matchup particularly highly rated. I guess I have it neutral, but yeah. I think foot could be interesting, but I think more realistically, what you'd want is a team that does execute through lobbies still, but they hide, they go silent, they come back in second and third wave. So they play a contact style on this. And here's the problem: I don't think most of the teams who are really good at that didn't make it to this tournament. So in EU, Na'Vi did not make it. In NA, I might be wrong here. I think both C9 and NRG kind of play in this style where it's very, very slow, very contact heavy. Like they're just going to walk up. Suddenly there's one guy holding over an angle, and 3 guys just sort of walk in front of him, and one of them kills him. And they're good. They end up good because of that, basically. Those teams I don't think generally have got here, and obviously on the Apex side, PRX obviously not that team. I think if anyone could surprise us here and just be like, yes, this is the best split team, it will be Fnatic or EDG. EDG, I don't know about the standard competition really. Fnatic, I wasn't impressed with Fnatic during the split at all, particularly on attack. The defense, solid, fine. Their attack kind of seemed to be lacking. I don't know how well they're going to adapt as a team. But yeah, my money will be on Gen G at this point. Okay, there we go. So, thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. I'll potentially do some more ones during the tournament, and have a nice day, I guess.